as the course says, we're going to talk about commercial safety today. I hope everybody, good morning, good afternoon, whatever it is in the time zone you're at. I do commercial inspections. I do an awful lot of commercial inspections. And so I want to spend a little moment of your time and talk a little bit about who we are and who I am. As far as commercial inspection experts, I run a nationwide commercial inspection company. We do commercial inspections out of 17 locations. Here in Chicagoland, where I'm located, I have 9 inspectors that work under my watchful eye. We have 19 other inspectors that do residential. I've been inspecting commercial buildings since 1989. So 30 plus years I've been dabbling with this. Just a few years ago in 2016, we stood back. We were looking at how much we were doing and decided that we wanted to actually blow up this division, create a whole subsection for commercial inspections for the brick kicker. And so we actually launched a formal training program for the 17 locations for our local inspectors. I rewrote a reporting system that follows almost directly ComSop, the commercial standards of practice, almost to the letter, versus some other standard which was out there, the ASTM standard. And so we really established ourselves in this marketplace as the go-to versus somebody that just does one inspection here, one inspection there. To kind of move forward with that, like I say, in 2016 we started. We've doubled our volume annually. In 2019 alone, we did 3 million square foot of roof space. We classify commercial inspections in our operation as any building larger than a 6 unit. So an 8 unit, a 12 unit, a 20 unit, that's a residential style. That's a commercial building. It runs completely different. A 1 flat, a 2 flat, a 3 flat, a 4 unit building. Those are pretty much residential. About anybody can handle them. But when you start looking at 6 units and bigger, then that's when you're really going to sharpen your tools and get to going on it. In 2019, we did $250,000 worth of billing out of this operation. So for some home inspection companies, that might be enough to sustain you just in commercial. In 2020, year to date, now I have to change that. When I wrote this presentation and refined it again last week, it said 91 projects so far this year in the year of COVID. This month alone, and today is the 16th day, we've done 23 projects to date, and I've got 5 projects on the board for next week. So we're really building the presence. As far as my role with the CCPIA, which is the Certified Commercial Property Inspectors Association, I've had the opportunity to author a few articles. I've been featured in a few videos, and then I've come out to Boulder there, and I've taught the roofing and business operation course. So I am pretty active in the CCPIA as well. That's probably why I've been asked to come here today. So when you start your business, whether it's residential or commercial, when you start your business, you have one objective, and that has to be clear and perfect. You want to come home every night. You got to learn right at the get-go that you have to appreciate safety over everything else. And so I always, I know this is tough. I always look around my audience, and and on this format I can't really see, but I always want to know if there's any OSHA or safety people, because I want to make sure that they understand that I'm not teaching, this is not an OSHA course. This is a general safety practice course. And so let's kind of start with that. For most of us, we work alone. We don't have assistants. We don't have, most of us are, as we get older, we wish we had Sherpas carrying our tools around. but we work alone. So when we work alone, we have to think safe to be safe. Every action you do, every system you look at, every element of the inspection, everything has to start out with the internal question, will I be safe? Will I be safe doing this? If I put my ladder here in this space, will I be safe? If I crawl into here, can I get out? Those are safety questions. If I step on this, what happens to that? And so in doing that, we have to think that the most important tool that you carry, both as an inspection tool and as a safety tool, has to be that phone. That phone has to be hooked to your hip. That phone has to be a lanyard around your neck. That phone has to be right there with you at all times. And in that phone, you better have good contacts. I know for me, in doing this, if anything happens, I can call my office. There's somebody here. Every time an inspector's in the field, there's somebody here on the phone that's a backup that can help us. But maybe you work alone. Maybe you don't have an office staff. And so having other colleague inspectors that can come bail you out. Raise your hand, to the world if you've ever been locked on a balcony and you didn't have the key because the door locked behind you. How many have you ever had a ladder fall off the roof and you've been stuck up there? Have you ever got stuck in a crawl space you couldn't climb out of? I don't know. There's 100 different ideas that can come through your head. The phone is your safety tool. The phone is your lifeline. So with that, we're going to go through this course and this couple hours that we're together today, and we're going to try to focus on the various systems that are in play. And those systems that I think are key are the exterior, the roof, the interior, what we're doing with HVAC, some specific tasks that we're going to get into, and then driving in your operations of your business. So when we get started, we really start diving into this closely. I think the standards that we have, the standards for which you operate, really helps define as a really good tool in your bag. So what I mean by the standards, if you're going to work with ComSop, for instance, know them, understand them, give them to your client, let them know that this is what you're going to do. We recommend, if you're following ComSop, if you're following the good business practices of the CCPIA, and again, go to ccpia.org. There's some really good information in there. Join it. It's a great organization. It's a very good tangent organization to InterNACHI. So anyway, with the CCPIA, we recommend very strongly, you have to have an agreement. You have to, which is a contract. You should really propose every job. This is not a residential where they call you up and say, hey, it's a 3-bedroom, 2-bath home. How much? I mean, these are, 4, 5, 8, 12, 15. I got a sheet right here of a job that just came in an hour ago. This is 6,500. This one below it is 9,500. This other one over here is 14,000. Yesterday's was 22,000. These are big buildings. These are big purchases. And so a proposal is the typical method for which you provide the price to your client. And in that proposal, I clearly identify what I will and will not inspect. I clearly explain and provide the standards of practice to my clients. I'm going to clearly talk about the limitations of access. And I'm going to clearly define the scope for what I'm going to do. There's nothing in the ComSop that says I have to carry a ladder to mount a roof. It says if a roof access is provided, I will go up on the roof. If they don't provide a roof access, I don't have to go on that roof. I can think of other means, and we'll talk about that here as we progress. So, but have a standard, have an agreement, have a proposal, and clearly dictate what you're going to do. Once they sign that, you're good to go. So when we think about these systems, let's first talk about the exterior. When we're dealing with the exterior of a property, if it's a big property, if it's a small property, it might be along roadways or highways. If you're dealing with the CommSop, it asks for where's the access point, where's the egress point, where are the spots that we're getting into the property. We're going around parking lots and driveways. We've got topography and drainage. We've got flat work and fencing. We've got loading docks and levelers. Not everything is smooth sailing. Not everything is perfectly paved asphalt. You know, think about, you know, if you've got a big parking lot like I'm showing here with truck traffic, maybe you want to have a vest so they can see you. You don't want to be wearing gray camouflaged into the asphalt because there'll be a good chance to be a road rash. You know, if you're walking around parking lots and driveways. I think topography. Yeah, I think of properties with high grass, and I'm walking around the outside of the building because maybe the building's not been maintained well. Where am I going to trip at? I think of an office building we did last year. It was about 97,000 square foot office building. It's been vacant for a little while, so the grass was easily up to my chin, and I had to reach around. I was over by some HVAC in the corner, and there was something furry sleeping. Well, you never seen this guy here jump so high and run so fast because I did not like the stripe coloring on the back of that furry creature, and I was not going to get sprayed again. Spray once, I'm good. Spray twice, never. And so I ran. So you got to think about safety. You got to think about where you're walking. Think about tripping and places like that. Because when we're looking at that with flat work, there's a ton of trip hazards. You're sitting there staring down at your phone because maybe you're taking notes, or your tablet, or your notepad, or whatever the notes devices you're doing, or dictating into something, and you're not watching where you're walking. Then you become that person, that meme that you see online that falls into the fountain at the mall because they're busy texting. So watch where you're walking. Fences. I did a vehicle repair shop earlier this month, and there was a mix-up in the time. And they said, hey, it's okay, you can go in, you got to just go over the fence. We'll be here in a couple hours to open the building. Well, I sat there, and again, this old fat guy going over a fence is not only comical, but dangerous. So I erected my ladder to go over, and, you know, but you got to decide if that's safe, if that's something you can do. Now, going up my ladder and down my ladder was extremely safe. But I was not going to put a ladder up there and then do the leap. I was thinking safety. And so those are things that we want to look at. Again, looking at exteriors, we've got sidewalls, fenestration. That's our commercial word for doors and windows. And so we've got fenestration, we've got canopies and awnings, we've got retaining walls and seawalls, and then decks, patios, porches, and balconies. In Chicago, where we're at, and we're doing multifamily, there are a lot of balconies. These balconies could be 3, 4, 5, 6 stories tall. These balconies could be very poorly built, and they're rickety. These could be very solid. Most of them don't have graspable hand railings. You'd think they should, but they don't. We have inclement weather like snow and ice. So there I am. I got a ladder on my shoulder. Got to go up to the top because that's where the hatch is. And so it's, where do you put your ladder on that balcony that you're going to be safe? I mean, there's been times I've gone up there with a screw gun and a 2x4, and I actually put a 2x4 as a cleat into the deck. I don't care. That's my safety. That's my apparatus for securing the bottom end of my ladder. So these are things we want to look at as we're going through here. Some examples. The top left picture. Well, that's the ideal. That's the ideal truck dock. Got a beautiful Ballard. Got stairs with a railing. We got yellow and black tape. We've got a red door, and we've got a good truck bumper. Yeah, that's perfect. Ideally, though, the bottom right's what we see. It's a dock that doesn't have a drain, that doesn't work well. It's full of muck. It may or may not have a railing. We're lucky this one does have a railing, but this is the typical docks that we come across. You know, so you're not going to go near that. You're going to take your picture from afar away. There's nobody that needs to be a hero when it comes to these things. And so we have the ideal on one side, and we have the typical on the other. The other thing we started thinking about was retaining walls. I got the retaining wall on the brick one on the one side that's got pilasters and buttresses holding it together as well as tiebacks. Then got the retaining wall on the other side that's leaning, you know, way past its tilt point. And so if you're walking around, you also got to think about if it's tilting. I should say if it's tilting, you know, one way. And then what about the ground that's on the bottom that's sloughing away? If that ground on the bottom is sloughing away, it could be a sinkhole or something in there. So you want to be careful where you walk, or if you walk the top of it, which I wouldn't encourage, but you know, maybe you do. Is it going to move under your foot? So again, we've got the ideal, and then we turn around and we've got the typical. Then when we move from exteriors, I'm looking to see, I don't see it, you know, if anybody's got a chat or a question. We have roofing. During the roofing here, I want to talk a little bit about our access, whether we're going to use a hatch, whether we're going to use a ladder, whether we're walking up. And we're going to talk a little bit about fall prevention, edges, and sticks. So when we look at roofs, that is part of our inspection. We need to look at them. The first and foremost is standing water. Now, maybe there's somebody on the call on this, maybe there's not. Last October, I was up on a roof very similar to this, and I flipped and I fell, and I shattered my right wrist. And that was in October, right about this week, actually, last year. And I wasn't medically cleared to work until June. That is a tremendous amount of time that I had 3 surgeries and all this other stuff. And we're all guilty of this. Every one of us. If you look at the picture in the bottom right, there's a tool bag on top of that train RTU. So that picture was, you know, that tool bag had somebody heading over there. And so when we have that, we have to be careful of how we get there. You know, it's like walking on ice. It's like the most slippery thing in the world. You know, the TPO that's wet, the TPO roof that's on a restaurant next to the exhaust fan with a little bit of grease, where the TPO won't degrade with that organic matter or the grease or the sludge that's up there from the decaying leaves. It does get slipperier than ice. And so we just have to be careful. You know, you stand back and you look at the roof and you go, okay, you know, where's my plan? If I start falling, if there's a little bit of slope, do I have a spot to catch myself? You know, all these have to be decision factors, because every one of us, there's not a single one of us, we're all that same personality that doesn't say, I want to get over to that air conditioning condenser unit. I want to get to that RTU that's over there. My clients need to know what the model and serial number of that train is. They need to go to that other one in the back and see, what is that York? How old is it? You know, these are questions that I need to answer, and every one of us has such a solution mentality that we need to go stop. Can I get there safely? If not, don't go. That's what we're talking about. And don't be afraid to say, I can't get there. Hatches. I 22,000 square foot building yesterday. 24-foot clear height in the warehouse. No roof hatch. The only way to get on that roof was a long extension ladder. Now, I knew that. I had another guy with me. We brought the company van, and we had a ladder, and we went up there. Didn't need to, didn't have to, could have very easily told our clients, we're excluding the roof from this inspection, but there were 9 RTUs up there and I wanted to get paid and I want to do that work. So that aside, I told our clients as part of the recommendation is they should install a hatch. They should put a hatch in that will safely allow their maintenance person from the mezzanine to get up to the roof. And they can do that with a 6-foot extension or a 6-foot step ladder. Now, when you think about these hatches, most of these hatches have an almost perfectly vertical ladder, which we all know is probably the most dangerous of ladders. Some of them have cages, some of them don't. While you can Google it, you can look online, you can do wherever you want, they do have poles that can extend up to make it very easily accessible to dismount the ladder and get on the roof. Most don't. From the top of the hatch to the top rung of the ladder could be 3 or 4 feet. I mean, it is, if you don't do well with heights, if you have a little bit of a vertical issue, that's nervy to do that. Most of those vertical ladders have really, really small rungs. And so you definitely don't want to wear shoes that don't have a heel. You know, that heel or a little bit of grit on your shoe can really help bind into that small rung because, you know, a rainy day or something, you can slip off that real easy. And then you got to always worry about with that hatch. There's a latch on the hatch, you know, as I'm Dr. Seuss, but many a times you don't latch it right or something. That wind can close that hatch behind you, and then you're kind of stuck. So that's why you have your phone. I carry a clip, you know, just a simple, you know, just a simple wood clamp that I can put on the hatch, so that if it snaps closed behind me, that clip keeps it from closing all the way, and then I'm always safe and know that I'm not going to get locked up. But hatches are always good to understand and good to know. That's why when my safety on every inspection starts when the phone call comes. When the phone call comes and we fill out our job sheet, and I instantly, one of the questions we ask is, what is the clear height of the job of the warehouse or the office space? But I look at every job online. Google Images has got such great views of every building that I can look at and go, oh, there is a roof hatch, or no, there's no roof hatch there, but it's only this high. I can get my normal ladder to it. I've researched all that before I've even put the proposal out. So that's where I know how the hatch is going to work and what's going to happen. But since I do work alone, I always have some form of fall prevention with me. I wear a harness. I'm not afraid to say it. You know, I'm here. I use a simple, real easy harness. I have a double clip on it, so very similar to the blue one I have here in the picture. It fits me. It fits my body. There's a date on it. The date is the replacement date because, like anything else, they do expire. I do wear it correctly. It is large enough to go over my winter coat, but they can cinch in tight enough to wear for my summer, because in the winter we get pretty cold, and in the summer we get pretty hot. And so when I climb up these vertical ladders that could be 20, 30, 35 feet in the air, I go up 2 steps, clip, go up 2 steps, clip, unclip, go up 2 steps, clip, unclip, and that's how I go. So the most I'm ever going to fall without the tether being secure will be 2 steps, and that I've deemed to be safe enough for me. That won't hurt me. But I'm clipped all the way up to the point that I'm standing on the roof. Then I unclip, and then I clip before I go over and get down the hatch. That's my safety. Once I'm on the roof, no, I don't have any other fall prevention, but I do absolutely where my fall prevention when I'm climbing those direct vertical ladders, especially alone.
Okay, Rob, we have a
Yes,
couple
ma'am.
of questions. May I ask those of you?
Please.
Okay. Gentleman said, it's my understanding you do not have to have a license to inspect commercial locations. Is that true?
You'd have to check state by state. And all the research that I've done in the 17 regions that I'm working in right now, I have not seen where any regulatory body has created a license for commercial. Now, you might read some residential licenses in some obscure states that might put some caveats in there, but my recommendation is always look to yourself. But no, I have not found where I need a license to work in other places.
Okay, and a second question is, where do most of your commercial businesses come from? And then what regions do you cover?
So those are good questions. Those are more for business than safety, but I'll hit those. My regions go coast to coast. They go from Vancouver, Washington to Fort Lauderdale, Florida, from the Lake Champlain in Vermont, all the way down to Ventura Boulevard in California. So we pretty much, create a nice crisscross of the country. Our better regions, East Coast in Baltimore and DC, throughout the Midwest. We're being Chicagoland. I can hit about an 850-mile radius in one day, and so I'll put a guy in a car and go. For our more remote regions, most of the time our team can handle anything up to about 100,000 square foot alone. When a project gets to be bigger than 100,000 square foot, and if the money's right, then that's when I put somebody on a plane or put somebody in a car. But by and large, we're largely Midwest out of this office. But then with the other 17, you can go online and check out our webpage at brickicker.com and see that. As far as getting work, it's just the same way as you got your residential. There's commercial realtors that are direct. I mean, I play a lot of golf. I do a lot of social marketing, where I go to a lot of commercial events. The bigger difference that you're going to find between the commercial realtor or broker and the residential is that commercial broker is probably cultivating that buyer over 6 months, a year, 2 years to find that right building for them. And so they really hold that client very, very, very tight to their breast. And us coming in we are still, this is where commercial really becomes the most fun. And I encourage you to really think about when we get off the COVID train to take the CCPIA 3-day course, because we do spend a lot of time in this, we are in the commercial world where residential was 40 years ago. I'm old enough, being 30, this is my 31st year of inspecting, to remember what it was like in the Wild West, where you just had to print a business card and you are one. That's really where commercial is now. And where I have my biggest problem is because we specialize in it and are good at it. I'm going up against other colleagues on the residential side that think they can do it, and their reports aren't the same. They try to do a residential report, and they're just not as good as what we are. And so the challenge is it's an apples, and I wouldn't even say orange. It's like an apple and a kumquat difference between what I supply and what they might supply, as far as understanding the buildings, understanding the dynamics, and understanding even the structure of them. We're in buildings that it could be a turn of the century, the last one, in 1890s, 1912, 10-story building, and that's built completely different than a concrete tilt-up. And if you can't speak that language, then that's when you're going to have the trouble. So my marketing largely is still contact marketing and web-based.
Okay, we have 2 additional questions, and I'll just kind of combine them both because I think they would fall under the same area. Is that an online course that you're speaking of, and is that course free?
No. The CCPIA course is live in Boulder, right there next door to the house, next to the House of Horrors. It's over our right shoulder. There was supposed to be one that was going to be given. When was it? I think it was in September, but it got canceled because of our COVID social distancing. I wouldn't be surprised if it doesn't get rescheduled for the spring, and probably given the interest, I'm sure they'll probably do multiple courses. There's other courses you can take. If you join CCPIA, they have just like InterNACHI, there's free courses right there that you can take that are very, very good courses. But I don't think anything substitutes for a live, interactive, tactile course that you can touch and feel and smell.
Okay, that's all I have as far as questions. Thank you.
Thus far. Perfect. So let's talk about ladder safety a little bit. I kind of borrowed a little of this from the ladder course that is available at InterNACHI. The most common causes of ladder injuries probably have to happen from getting on and getting off your ladder. You know, you lose your step, you lose your balance, your feet are slippery, you're not concentrating, you probably set your ladder up improperly, you overreached. You know, your ladder, you got to go up and down. You're not supposed to go sideways on it. You misstep. I have fallen twice in 31 years off ladders. I hit the ground once. The other time I was caught. But the time I hit the ground, it was a wet day. Ladder was placed on an asphalt driveway, and the bottom feet of my ladder didn't hold. The asphalt driveway was slippery enough that it caused the ladder to sweep from me. So it's very important to watch where you put your ladder. I personally carry a 20-foot piece of rope for my Navy friends, a hunk of line. I'm not afraid to tie off the bottom of my ladder to something, whether it's a fence post, whether it's a steel downspout that's going into the ground. I'm not afraid to say I've tied it off to a gas line or 3. That just keeps the bottom of my ladder from kicking out. I have, again, I work alone. I have put my truck bumper into a very precarious position that my ladder can be held by my truck. I remember on an icy day that this is the only way I'm going to get up there. But you always got to be careful. You can buy spikes to put in the ground. You can buy, I told you about the taking a 2x4 and a couple of screws up on the balcony and screwing in the cleat. Anything I can do to be safe, I'm going to do. One quick horrible story, I'm embarrassed to say. I had a building. On the back of the building, I should have done the math better. The building was 37 CMU blocks high. So you guys can all do the math on how tall that building was. The front of the building to the gutter line was only 8 feet, 9 feet. So it was a real low gutter, and it had kind of a modified mansard type front. And I put my ladder in the front of the building, and I scampered up that valley of the roof easily. And I got up to the peak, And I was, you know, lo and behold, it was a 5-foot drop from that parapet front to the roof. And I went, shucks. So I got down on the roof. I did my roof. I had 4 or 5 RTUs up there. I did all that. And then all of a sudden I get done. Now I got to get off that roof. So I went around and I found a bunch of cinder blocks that were up on the roof that used to be for old satellite dishes or something. I don't know. Maybe I was just blessed that the roof gods left me cinder blocks. And so I made myself a little perch. I got up to the top and I realized the roof was too steep for me to come down. It was easy to go up. We all know that. It was just tougher coming down. And I ended up having to call the realtor that was there. No, my client wasn't there. And I said, hey, I need you to do me a favor. You need to come out and hold my ladder. Because as I come down this valley, I might be coming faster than I want to come. And I'm going to need to grab that ladder and you're just going to brace. Well, I didn't need it. I came down. But I mean, it was a little bit of a pucker factor for a while. So I had to really think about, you know, should I have done that? And safety wise, absolutely not. But setting it up and overreaching and figuring out what to do is really important. Now let's talk about ladders. Most of us, we all carry our trusty, rusty, old articulating ladder. They're convenient, they're portable, they're lightweight. And I'll tell you, for commercial buildings, they're fabulous because they do everything for me. I carry 3 ladders with me on a daily basis. I have a 24-foot articulating ladder. I have a 17-foot 9-inch, and then I have an 18-foot telescopic ladder. Each of them have their own specific purposes for their own specific needs. But my old little giant 17-foot 9-inch ladder, boy, do I love it. It is great for getting up in a T-bar. It's lightweight. I can take it everywhere because when I'm doing my inspections, let's say if it's an office space, I go up in the T-bar about every 500 square foot grid. That's about as far as my gaze and my eye can provide me a good look at the ductwork, at the electric, at the T-bar connection, at the masonry, at the firewalls, all the things that I look for when I'm up in the T-bar. Because as I tell every person that's ever worked for me, you go above the T-bar and the world is there. It's just it is the coolest space to find things. It's the coolest space to inform your clients about fun stuff. But you got to get up there. And so that articulating ladder is great for what we do. But sometimes you want to use just a normal A-frame ladder because it's great and it's super lightweight, but it's very static in its height. It's very limited in its height. Again, it's great for T-bar because it's super lightweight. And you could carry for most 8-foot or 9-foot ceilings, you can carry a 4 or 5 foot one of these and be set versus carrying the bigger steel one. But I always carry the bigger articulating ladder because there might be one room that the A-frame is perfect, but then there might be another spot where I want to extend all the way up and get 8, 10, 12 foot in the air. And that's where taking my ladder straight up is the only way that's going to do that. And so, because there might be a firewall or a smoke wall or something up there that I need to see past. But I do have inspectors. In fact, my electrician on staff, he only carries a frame and extension ladders. He doesn't even have an articulating ladder for that reason. He just loves fiberglass ladders and he just loves A-frames. Speaking of extension ladders, they're bulky. They're not very portable. Depending on the length of your ladder, it's really the length of your vehicle. We know that there's Department of Motor Vehicle regulations on how long your ladder can extend past your vehicle. You can certainly get into more spots, but you're not driving your small car. You're driving a big truck or a big van. So that's not very practical, especially if you're a one vehicle type of person and you just take your tools out. Now it's your family vehicle. You put your tools in. Now it's your work vehicle. But then if you really stand back and look at OSHA standards a specific, and I'm not going to get into the standards because I don't want to get caught reciting the wrong standard. But at a specific height of ladder, OSHA requires multiple people to use it. And so it gets a little it gets a little hairy when you start having a 32 or a 38-foot ladder and trying to manhandle that, push that up and extend it up and do all those things. I just don't. We have 3 here at the office. We do take them out when we have to, and that's when I have to deploy multiple inspectors. And the more inspectors I send to a job, the less profitable that job really is, because I've got more manpower that I need. So when you're thinking about ladders and you're thinking about load capacities, you're going to buy your ladder, and that's why I think safety-wise we need to talk about this, based on your body type and what you do. And so whether you're in a type 3 light duty household ladder or you're a type 1 AA with a big, rugged, look in the mirror, stand on a scale, then it's going to help point you in the direction of the ladder that you need. My little giant's a type 1 ladder. Luckily it can handle, what I weigh, but you got to watch for that. Do not extend your load. We get all excited. Oh, good grief. When I see a picture of a building and I see the built-in ladder, well, yay, it's been provided. I get all excited. I drive down. Once you start doing this long enough, you start driving down the road at 30, 60 miles an hour, and you look over, schools are great, office buildings are great. Say, oh man, I just go up this one hatch over here, and I climb up this ladder over here, and I climb up this ladder over here. But your big question is do you trust them? Are they maintained? Are they locked? This particular one is locked at the bottom, but I can put another ladder. If the building manager is not there, I can put a ladder on top of it and then use it from there. So I can do this safe. I have one client in the city owns 37 buildings, and every year we inspect all 37 buildings on their exterior. We're almost like their maintenance team. We do a maintenance inspection on all the roofs, common areas, and exteriors. And there's one block where he owns the end of the building on one side of the block, the end of the building on the other side of the block, and 2 in the middle, but not the other 2. Well, I know on the one I can climb up the fire escape on the far north side, do that building, do the next building. I got to climb over the parapet wall, across 2 roofs, do the next building, over a parapet wall, cross a roof. Then there's always a small step ladder there. Put that down, do the next one. You got to get pretty inventive. It's it's a little bit fun to go roof by roof. But when you see this just is great because you've got the extension that goes over the parapet. You've got a really nice platform to stand on. You're not standing on the coping. You're really in good shape, with the exception that happens so many times in the city. We see these. Now this is a bad representation, but you'll see just the rebar that's set into the masonry. And that's been there for 70, 80, 90 years. And that just takes that pucker and just twists that up. I never trust them. I don't walk them. I don't use them. Oh, I used it last week. It was fine. Sure, I'll put the harness on. I'll jiggle it, clip, see if it works. But 9 times out of 10, I put my ladder right over the top of this. It's a lot like the attic stairs or the attic pull-down stairs or pull-down ladders that we see. And half the time, none of us trust them. We put our ladder right over the top of it because those stairs have not been maintained. This rebar has been sitting out for 70 years. It's rusted. It's not in good shape. Why am I going to put my body there and try to get all the way up onto this roof, and be 2 or 3 stories in the air by just going on these itty bitty little rungs? So think about it. If you trust it, great. If you don't, then figure out another means.
Rob, I have another question for you.
Please.
How do you price a commercial inspection?
Three ways. I have a flat rate fee. I have a square foot fee, and I have an hourly fee, and that really depends on the project. I look at each project. I think in one of the free articles that are available at ccpa.org, I wrote an article a couple of years ago on the philosophy of pricing commercial inspections. And so I'd ask you to go look for that article, and that would help, kind of guide you. So no two jobs are the same. No two projects are the same. No two clients are the same. I do as a company. In fact, we're in the middle of it right now. My staff is price shopping 30 inspection companies in our metro area right now as we speak, to try to see what they're charging, because I'm constantly taking my pulse of where our fees are based to somebody else. If I'm winning too many jobs, I'm too low. If I'm losing too many jobs, I'm too high. For a while there, we were losing most of our multifamilies to inspectors that, I'll send 3 guys out to do a 10 unit and get done in 2 hours. And they'll go out there and do the 10 unit. And they don't care. They'll be there all day. My guys will be there 2 hours, and then each of them will do 2 more inspections each. And for some companies, they could do 1 job. I'll give a great example. It was 175,000 square foot shopping center about 90 miles north of here, where we're at. And it was all 1 story, except there was a bank that was a 3-story and a small office building that was a 2-story in this project. And I bid this project as a 1-week project. I'd bring enough staff where we'd be there for 3 days, and I'd spend 2 days writing the report. And I think I put the proposal out there as 25 grand, just to pick a number. So I picked 25 grand. I put that on there, and wrote the whole proposal, and I promised the report within a week. And the realtor called. I didn't hear of anything, and I finally called the realtor back and said, "Hey, did we get the job?" "No." "Well, why didn't you call me back? I told you I could sharpen a pencil if you needed me to sharpen the pencil." And he said, I couldn't. "Why?" "Well, somebody came in at 10. So I was at 25, they were at 10. Then I realized that inspector only needs 10 grand a month to make whatever he wants to make in his business. So he was going to treat that job as the only job that he was going to do in the entire month. And I was going to treat that job as I was going to have 3 guys on it for 3 days. And so my fees might be different than somebody else's, or my expectations might be different than somebody else's. And so I just simply told the realtor, I said, "Well, congratulations. If you ever have a question, let me know." I've done 10 other jobs for that realtor since then, because of the way I handle it, because he realized that other inspector didn't know what they were doing, but the client just wanted the lowest cost.
Okay, and does it cost to join CCPIA?
It does. I encourage you to go to their website. I don't know what programs they have, but you can. It is in the same building as InterNACHI. It's just a commercial arm of InterNACHI.
Okay, and one last question. What do you think of the 21-foot or 25-foot type 1A ladders?
They're great if you can get them. If you can get them on your vehicle. I drive an SUV. It's not I don't have a giant Suburban or anything. I just got a simple Traverse, and so I don't have anything to put on top. I don't put anything on top. But you certainly can. There's nothing wrong with it. For a while, I even carried a telescopic A-frame 24-foot ladder, but it was just too heavy. It collapsed down to 4 foot, but it took 2 men and a boy to carry it into the building to start erecting it. So I don't even carry that anymore. That just sits in the van, doing nothing. But those are good safe ladders for one person to move. So that's kind of the ladder that a telephone repairman uses, the cable guy uses, the satellite installer uses. A lot of our residential colleagues use them because that's the type of ladder that gets you to a second floor gutter line. Us, on the other hand, thank you for that great question. Segue time. Every inspector that works in our operation has a 30-foot selfie stick. We put our cameras in the air. We don't use drones. Drones require too much licenses. Most of us are too old to be able to use our fingers and take pictures and fly all at the same time. And frankly, I can't fall off the ground as well as I can fall off a roof or fall off something else. And so we have our camera sticks, and we use those when we have roofs that we can't access with the ladders that we have. They do a fine job, whether you're using a GoPro, putting an SLR, putting a normal Wi-Fi camera. I've been using the Ferret cam, or the Ferret Wi-Fi camera almost exclusively the last few months, and I love it. It takes a great high def picture. The Wi-Fi goes 40 feet, and it does a really nice job for me, because then I can blow the pictures up on my computer when I get back and take screenshots and really get a good diagnosis on those roofs that I can't get up to, or the parapet walls I can't get into. And so we use the sticks. You got to really watch for power cables. The sticks that we have are the tallest sticks I can buy up that become the shortest sticks that I can find down. And so they'll hit about 27 to 30 foot. And then on mine, I can actually put another 55 inches on top of it of a second stick. So that gets me up to where I need to get to see into things. So we really like, we call them our selfie sticks. But you can use drones, you can use all those things as well. I've just found that I can't fly a drone. So, kind of summarizing ladders, it's your equipment, use common sense. That's, look around. Safety for you and your clients is thus far the most important thing. So think safety first at all times. Have a bungee cord. Strap the top of your ladder to the coping, the parapet wall, to the gutter, keep it from sliding off. Take a long piece of rope and a clove hitch and tie things up. Anything you can do, because we're working alone. Segueing into the interiors. When you think about these buildings, most of them are in operation. We're going to have equipment challenges. We got lockouts, we got locks, we got confined space machinery. Could be crawl spaces in basements, all those things. Because when you look at it, you got a nice pristine office. There they are putting a piece of the International Space Station together, right? So we got this beautiful, pristine space. Not hardly. Most of our, the offices, they could be vacant and run down, is filthy. I have moved to wearing Teflon pants so that when they get dirty, I can just brush them off. Because I walk through a commercial building, it's a machine shop, it's all kinds of things, and I end up just a filthy mess. And if I got another project to do afterwards, I gotta change my shirt right away, brush my pants off, do whatever I need to do. The office space, it could be a really good one, or it could be challenging, and we'll leave that there. So you got to be careful. Carry a drop cloth if you're going to go up in the T-bar. That goes a long way as well. Then we move into electric. Besides the roof and falls, electric is pretty darn dangerous. Where in residential, the max you might run into is is a 200 amp panel. 200 amp is a sub panel around commercial. You might have 1,000 amp, 1,500, 1,600 amp, or considerably larger. I actually had a job back in 2010. My first infrared camera I ever bought was we got hired to inspect every electric panel and switch gear at Northwestern University hospitals. That's 14 buildings, 3,900 panels with infrared. So that is a lot of electric. So you got to stand back and go, do I open or don't I open? Are they, they're pretty large conductors, lots of multiple disconnects. We could be working in confined spaces with electric. So you got to worry about that. And remember, you're working alone. So when you look at electric, the panels moving from the right to the left, the right, that's a pretty standard 125 amp panel. So the next two, those are 3 screw panels. You can absolutely take those things apart in a safe manner based on the principles that you already know from doing residential inspections. Now you come to the panel that the door is not off. That's a 4 screw panel. That's a very heavy door panel that could even be a panel that's got dogs that go around and hold the panel in place. That's a panel that could be a 400 amp, that could be a 200 amp, that could be a 225 amp, but that's a panel I'm probably not going to take the door off of, because that is a lot more challenge for just a building inspector to do. And so I would take all the information. I probably wouldn't take that panel apart, but the other 3 panels, they're 3 screw panels. Those are what we're used to looking at every day. What's interesting with commercial is that same old rule that we're used to. I call it the coffin. The 30 inches side to side and the 36 inches front to back. That's the same rule for commercial. So if you see an electric panel, if you see a transformer, if you see a piece of gear that doesn't have that clearance, well, that's a deficiency. And if it's a deficiency, why are you going to try to get into it? You just mark it as a deficiency and move on. And so some of those same principles that we're used to still translate between residential and commercial. It's just good common practice.
Okay, we do have a question, Rob.
Yes.
And it kind of goes back to ladders, so that's the reason I wanted to kind of ask it before you move on. And a couple of people said they use the Little Giant Hyperlight with Sumo stance. Another says Little Giant Epic 17-foot. But their question is the stick available at Inspector Outlet? And could an inspection organization be assessed in accordance with ISO 45001-2018 safety requirements?
I don't know that answer about the safety requirements. I don't. That stick used to be available. It's no longer available. One of the members that bought the stick came in contact with electric wires, as I understand it, and that's caused that stick to no longer be available through Inspector Outlet. I buy mine on Amazon. They call them a camera stick or a painter's pole or something, and that's what we've outfitted every employee in our operation. But as far as safety standards, I think you're gonna have to interpret that to yourself. I don't have an answer to that.
Okay, and here it's, if you don't open the large panels, how do you inspect and IR FLIR the breakers?
I open the cover. I don't remove the dead front. I open the cover door. I don't remove the dead front cover off of it. Is what we do. Yes, I do IR, but if you're IR, and you better understand, what's right and what's wrong, as far as temperature differences go, and not call something out just because it's under load. You can usually, you got to really understand if you're going to do an IR survey of what is a failed piece of gear versus just a piece of gear under load.
Okay, and this is the last one, Rob. How many times do you require your employees to go on a commercial inspection before you send them out?
It probably depends on the employee. First, they have to go through my 1-week course. I've been blessed enough that have taught this. I've been teaching this commercial course that I teach going back into the early 2000s when I used to teach for Kaplan, and I've taught for ITA, and I've taught for Brickicker University, and I've taught for I teach for CCPIA, and I've taught for other organizations as well. And it's a similar course. They have to go through that course. Then they do ride-alongs, and most of the time they start out with small condos. Condos, that small little warehouse condo or the small little office condo, and then they build up, and everybody's a little different. I've got one guy that didn't do real well on a roof yesterday, and so I made him go back and take another course. He called the roof one product, and it was a different product. So we're learning every day. Nobody can walk on water. Nobody's a deity in this business. So we're learning. I learn every day. Everybody learns every day. So it's really more of a visceral feeling. Do I think they're ready? But they typically ride along with me doing jobs for, I try to make sure that they've hit every style. They've done tilt-ups. They've done masonry. They've done solid masonry without steel. They've done steel without masonry. They've done office space, warehouse space, mixed-use space. I have a checklist that I use, and if they've gone through every one of those styles, then they become a helper on a project to somebody that's a lot more versed, and then they graduate from there. Speaking of ITA and Kaplan, some of you might not be able to recognize if you've been around this business. The man in the yellow suit here, or blue suit, is Mike Casey. Mike's been around this industry forever, and he runs Claims Intercept. He posted this year online of him getting ready to do a commercial electric panel. You see, he's got the non-contact gloves on. Excuse me. He's got the suit on. He's got the Spark helmet on. Because you see, every 36 hours, somebody's electrocuted in a home. Every day in a workplace, somebody's electrocuted. So really, being safe for yourself is the most important thing you can do for your family. So we make it mandatory that everybody has to have a non-contact voltage reader, something you can touch, something you can tell if the panel's charged or not charged. We use those before we exercise any panels. Excuse me. We look for burn marks. We look to, can I touch this panel and get out? Am I standing on anything like a ladder, a water puddle? Is there something weird about this? If there is, don't do it. We'll go to bat for every employee in this operation. If you say you can't do something safely, good, write it up, move on. None of us are heroes. Moving on to HVAC. HVAC can be very, very, very wide and robust in this business. We could have the standard little RTU. We could have the ceiling mounted warehouse hanger. We could have a normal everyday residential furnace that we all used to. Then you could have the giant box car. When you're working alone, it's tough. You take the RTU, do you before you go up on the roof, do you run around the inside of the building, you crank all the heat up, then you go up on top, and then you use the disconnect up on top to control it so that you can do what you need to do, and then you got to make sure it works. Do you make your decision of, I'm going to do them all up on the roof, working or not working, and then I'll go down and turn them on and just take temperature?
I know these are all choices you got to make to do your job. I'm typically the former versus the latter. I crank all the heat. I go up on the roof. I check to make sure they're working. I get all the information. Then I go back down. This is where two people really come in handy. If you're doing with a box car, you don't want to have a door open when a box car comes on. It'll suck your toupee right off the top of your head. There's a lot of air movement on those things. So you got to worry about lockouts and should you lock something out? Should you put a note on the thermostat? Do not touch, inspection in progress. These are all choices you need to make when you're doing your inspections, because HVAC is one of the key elements on every inspection. Then there's other things when we're running around the building, above the T-bar. Oh, are they a filthy mess? It's dusty. It's nasty. You got stairwells or other vertical transportation like elevators and escalators. There's an elevator motor here with its transformer. You're going to be in this room. You're not shutting the elevator off. You're not an elevator inspector. I'm not an elevator inspector, but I always take pictures of the equipment just to memorialize it in the report. And then we got to worry about our own bodies and lifting and things. We'll talk about that. But I want to move into another safety device that I think is important in commercial is our driving. Hands-free is the only way to go. Wait to make your calls. Most of us are trying to have a sandwich, dial your wife or your husband, get on the phone, call back a client. We're doing 4 things at once every time we're in the car, and that's how distracted driving can get people hurt. So be careful. That's people omit that when they do safety problems. But when you think about it, I think about myself, I'm lucky I work for a large company. I'm lucky we had a very good workers' comp policy. I was still able to work. I wasn't able to go in the field between October and February. I never left my office between October and February because of 2 surgeries in that time, and I couldn't get anything wet or fall on the ice or anything. Then in February I was able to start going back out, and so that's where to go back to the question was asked. This year was a huge learning year for my entire staff because for 6 months, every commercial job got me on them as not the worker, as the eyes and the pointer. And they all learned, very quickly to do these at a very accelerated rate. But when you do the math, and if you're hurt on the job, and plus not able to do inspections, means loss of business. Not the loss of business today, but the loss of business tomorrow and the next day. Because when you think about this business, the moment you become out of sight to your referral sources, they're not loyal. They've moved on, and they've moved on and found other inspectors. Because really, truly, we're here for one thing. That's our family. And when we're there doing the work for our family, if we get hurt and we're gone, now our family's not whole. And so now when I talk about safety and inspections, I start thinking about insurance. I've owned 4 other inspection companies besides being here for the Brick Kicker. And every inspection company I've owned or worked for, I've made sure that we've had the right insurance. We've always carried professional liability insurance. Now, before the question comes up, we are heavily insured to do commercial. I am insured by our carrier to anything I'm not afraid to propose. So it's pretty much an open check. If I want to inspect Terminal 1 at O'Hare International Airport, I can put a proposal in for that. They'll cover us. If I want to do a 500 square foot office condo, they'll cover us. We have general liability. With the amount of staff that we have workers' compensation, but then we have disability. When I owned my own company, the very first thing I bought after I bought my professional liability and general liability policies, I bought a disability policy. And when I sat down with my insurance agent, we talked about what do we need in our household to exist a month. And so she crafted the policy based on that. It's not like Aflac or something like that. This was a true disability policy where if I fell off a roof and couldn't work, we never lost the house. We were able to still pay our bills. That's what that policy was. And it was affordable. And so we've always had that working. Moving on, heat stress. You know, I always laugh when I'm writing this. Who said home inspection is not a hot job? We're in hot cars, we're on hot roofs, we're in hot attics, we're in hot houses. We got to really be careful of ourselves when we're out there doing these inspections. I could be up on a roof, and I might be on that roof on a commercial inspection for an hour or more, depending on how many furnaces are up there. The human body works at a very narrow range. It works between 91 and 100 degrees. If we increase of 1 degree, we get a fever. And so once we go north of that happy number, then we end up having issues. And I'll move through these pretty fast because we don't want to hear about the physiology. But the body exchanges heat with its surroundings 3 different ways: through radiation, convection, and evaporation. Radiation is transfer of heat from the body in the air, such as the sun, being next to hot metal, being on hot pavements, or being near furnaces. So radiation heat is what we're feeling when we're walking around the roof. Convection is the transfer from one warm body of air to the surrounding. So it really increases the differences between your skin temperature. It's hot outside, so it's hot on the body. I feel hot is what we're talking about with convection. And then evaporation is the sweat. You know, we can feel heat because the sweat's coming off of us. The more we sweat and the higher the humidity, the less heat loss we're going to get, and then we get even hotter. So when we start thinking about it, we got to think of what the heat does to our body. If the gain of heat exceeds the heat loss, then our body starts going into stress. Heat stress ranges from discomfort, I feel hot, to dangerous. You think about prickly heat with little kids. It occurs when the sweat glands become clogged in our body and we have the inability to start sweating and having the body naturally try to cool itself off. Then when we start moving into heat cramps, some people used to relate that to the old lack of salt, but that's otherwise been proven false. That usually hits our legs, our arms, and our abdomens. And so then we start moving to exhaustion, which is usually a weakness, a difficulty working, headaches, nausea, hunger, fainting. So that's the exhaustion that comes with heat. And then we get heat stroke, which is very life-threatening. In 80% of the cases, it involves death. So that's when your body temperature starts exceeding 106 degrees. So it's really important that we got to watch what we're doing. So what we want to do as inspectors, as we're out there 365 days a year, plus or minus, in everything. We didn't control the weather. I've only canceled 5 inspections in 31 years from weather. If it snows, I work. If it rains, I work. We just do what we got to do. You got to replace your fluids. You got to avoid hot, heavy meals when it's real hot outside. Replace your salt by just putting a little bit of extra salt in your food. Slow down a little bit and protect your skin. Wear the hats. Wear long sleeve shirts. Don't wear shorts. You'll protect your skin as much as possible. When we say replace your fluids, don't wait till you're thirsty. You should drink 8 ounces of water every hour. Avoid hot liquids or super cold liquids. Cool water or fruit juice is the best. So when I have an inspection and I know what I'm going to have before I leave the house, there are some homes that some buildings, I'll take a cooler with me. I'll put a cooler in the shade next to one of the furnaces up the ladder. And so it sits up there. So the whole time I'm up there on that roof where I have 8, 12, 15, 20 RTUs up there, that I can just take my time, hydrate, and be in good shape. If anybody's ever been in the military on this call, I can think of when I'm on the Navy bases that I'm on quite regularly. They have a urine chart on the top of every toilet, and it's a color chart. And so the color of your output really helps dictate what your body's doing. And so you want to operate in the lightest possible versus the darkest. The lightest, you're in good shape. The darkest, you're starting to get dehydrated. And so really watch yourself and kind of play out what you need to do. If today I was pretty dehydrated, that means I got to drink a little extra tonight, drink a little extra tomorrow. So tomorrow when I work, I'm not going to have a problem. You know, we're always working ahead at what we're trying to do. Avoid hot, heavy meals. If you eat this heavy meal, boy, I just love that burrito that's down the street. I'm gonna go get myself that big king size burrito. If you eat that big burrito, your body's spending more effort trying to digest it than it is for you to try to cool your body. And so try not to do that. You know, eat a lighter lunch and then celebrate later. Don't eat that heavy meal. Don't do salt tablets, just add a little extra food. Slow down a little bit. Right now in the COVID world, the mask over our face is limiting how much air we're getting to a point. You know, I won't get into a mask debate, but it naturally helps slow us down a little bit. So just when it's hot out, slow your pace a little bit. You know, don't plan as much during the day. We talked about that. So I want to move to a little bit more controversial topic, if I could. And it's situational awareness. Commercial buildings are a little different than residential. Residential, they're widely established, you know, yada, yada, yada. They're single family. Sometimes you got clients, sometimes you don't. Sometimes you got realtors, sometimes you don't. Commercial, though, they're a big space. There are all kinds of things that go on. They could be in a nasty neighborhood. They could be in a great neighborhood. They could be a nasty building. It could be a nice building. All these things come into play. So you got to really think about what's around you. Improve the situational awareness of everything that you're doing. When you drive up, where am I parking? Don't get distracted. Avoid certain situations. Avoid what you're doing. Have all kinds of means at your disposal. Maybe you got to look at your map. You know, maybe, you know, here's the Chicago metro area. You know, maybe I've got my good areas. I got my, no, I'm not going there areas. I got my sort of areas. You know, you have to look at where you're at. And if a job comes in an area that you just know that you don't want to be there, don't take the job. You know, just, I'm sorry, I can't do that job. You know, I'm sorry, we don't cover that area. I don't know. You'll figure out a way to say it. Because what you believe will happen, it will happen. I have seen it way too many times. I carry a pepper spray. I have a pepper spray in my bag. I have pepper spray in my car door. I don't get out of the car door to get gas without the pepper spray in my hand. And so my pepper spray will go 25 foot. It's the Sabre Red that I show here. It actually has a UV marker in it, so that if I tag somebody, they under a black light, they'll prove I got tagged. I move away from the situations. I avoid ever being in them. I try to be ready. I know some people on this call might carry a firearm. I have nothing wrong with that. I carry a firearm on every inspection I've gone on the last 5 years. So it's perfectly legal to have a concealed carry permit in this state. So it's up to you. But you just want to be situationally aware of what's going on. I start thinking about back in the old days. Again, I'm old. When I was in high school, I took driver's ed. And in driver's ed, we learned IPDE, identify, predict, decide, and execute. And so that's when we start looking at things. I had an inspector of ours in downtown Milwaukee doing a 4-story vacant mixed-use building alone. And he just went in there and started working in his normal pace, in his normal gait. He didn't make any extra noise. He just started working, and he went up to a floor where squatters were at, and he took a 2x4 to the side of the cheek. Shattered his chiclets all over the place, broke his jaw. He was really, really in bad shape. So be loud. Hey, I'm coming. Oh, here we are. Oh, I'm coming. Inspector coming. Let everybody know. Don't be a stealth. Have backup, whether your backup's a friend, whether your backup's your family. Let them know that you're going to call them every 15 minutes. Let them know you're okay. I don't know. Create some level of security around you to what goes on. I use the word avoidance. This is my inspection on Monday. It was a 24 unit downtown Chicago, average to less than average neighborhood. And I didn't understand where I was at. I never stand in front of a door. I am never the first one into the door. I'm down the stairs. I'm around the corner. I let the gatekeeper open the doors. I let the gatekeeper pound on the doors. I let them announce our presence. I can't tell you how many times I've walked into these buildings and have residents asleep in the middle of the day. They're not answering the door. They're back there playing games or whatever. So I'm never the first one in. I let somebody else walk in, look around and say, okay, Rob, it's clear. Then I go in. I am never, ever, ever first. And again, I don't stand in front of doors for obvious safety reasons. We'll kind of go through carbon dioxide real quick. We all know what it is. Colorless, odorless, tasteless. It builds in your body very quickly. And it can be found in confined spaces where there's no air. When you think about it, though, it's an absorption thing. So if you're running around carbon monoxide for a long time at low levels, it starts absorbing into your body. So know your body, know what goes on. You start getting that throbbing headache and weakness and confusion. That could be a long-term buildup of the carbon monoxide from the whole day's worth of events. That's when you start, make sure you get some air every once in a while and feel it. There's some guys that might carry or inspectors might carry an analyzer on their body just to know what's going on. I've actually done inspections. One of the most bizarre inspections I ever did was a dry cleaner. Yeah, a dry cleaner. They had one client, Exelon. They cleaned the nuclear waste garments and linens from all the nuclear plants in Illinois. So I had to walk in the building. They had put a dosimeter on me, and they had to measure my rad intake during the inspection, which was bizarre. And so you never know what you're going to have in front of you. So prevention, know your signs for carbon monoxide. Lifting is always tough. We're lifting all kinds of stuff. We're pushing stuff out of the way. Sometimes it's able to use your own experience. Lift safely, please. Most Americans have some form of back pain. So just know you can get hurt lifting. So be very safe, be very cautious with that. Now, outdoor safety. I want to hit these. We got trip hazards, pools, spiders, snakes, rats, and dogs. When we talk about safety outside, watch where you step. Look up, look down, look for branches, look for loose hand railings, watch stairs. Are they safe? Aren't they safe? When you think about old buildings with the steel fire escapes, that are all rusty, balconies that are rusty, all these things, you got to watch for those trip hazards, because if you go down, you're going to get hurt. We know we're not supposed to do pools and scopes of pool inspections by getting in. So don't fall in. Watch for the electric around the pools. We don't want to come in contact with anything. But for me, I hate spiders and I hate snakes. Pay attention. Carry a first aid kit that's got a spider and a snake bite kit in it. The brown recluse spider like this can give you blood poisoning in a day. And you're on antibiotics and you're in a rough shape. If you live in a snake infested area, you'll have a snake bite kit because you never know. When you open up the T-bar, rat droppings. Oh my goodness. That's the one thing about COVID that I can say I'm grateful for is we're all forced to wear a mask all the time. That's helping when I breathe into my breathe in. But boy, when I can't tell you how many T-bars you open and you are absolutely greeted with hantavirus and poop and all that other stuff. So be careful. My feeling is if it has teeth, it's going to bite. So if you see a dog, just be ready. You know, that's where I have my sprays in my hand. My spray is easy to get to in my bag. I can draw that pretty quickly. So, you know, even though old Maggie here looks nice and sweet, there's teeth behind that smile. And so you got to always be careful. So I wanted to show a couple of safety experts that I've met through the years at work, if I could. Here's somebody doing a nice safety inspection with a cigarette and flammable gas. If you know, this is what I recommend. The easiest way to not have a ladder, use buckets. If you don't have safety glasses, I recommend a 5-gallon bucket or duct tape goggles. If your ladder's not tall enough, bring 2 friends. These play a lot better when I have an audience. We can all laugh. If one forklift doesn't make it, use another. Again, bring more friends. And then we're all wearing protective gear, but the sidewalk engineer. So I asked if anybody has any other questions. We're supposed to give you a little bit of time to ask questions, and I think this might be the last session. So, but that's what I have for this.
I don't have any questions listed. Come on, you guys, ask some more questions. I know you've heard a lot today about safety. Maybe you'd like to share something and have Rob's comment on it. Rob, they are really good. I have to say that I've seen some of those same pictures, and it's kind of scary as inspectors. We don't do everything we should for safety, especially getting on the roof. Okay, here's a question. Isn't it reasonable for a large project to ask the client to provide an electrician to open up the panels?
You can do anything you want to as far as how you propose and how you scope. So I'll give you a great example. This June, we did an entire high school. Now you think, okay, a high school. It was what you'd expect to be a high school. It was almost 500,000 square foot, 2 gyms, cafeteria, all the classrooms. And I'm lucky enough, I have an electrician on staff. He's not only an inspector for residential, he's one of my commercial team, and he's a licensed journeyman electrician. And so I was able to make sure that my client knew that part of that inspection was going to include his observations and his view. If it's a large project, see, here's what's interesting about commercial inspections. When you really get down to it, most of the time, and I'm not going to put a percentage on it, but most of the time, what that building is today won't be tomorrow. So if you think about a building condo, today it's a sport clip. Tomorrow it's a dog boutique or a pet food store. You never know. So at the end of the day, we're looking at a box. That's really what it is. We're looking at the box. And so you might walk into that building and it might have a 1,000 amp service, and there might be 30 panels, you know, around this building, maybe one every 4th steel post holding up the roof. Well, maybe the people moving into it build pallets. and so they don't even care about 90% of that electric. Do the lights work? Good. That's all they care about. So when you really go back and you start looking at what we're doing, that's where the interview process with your client, what do you need? What's the building like? What are you going to use it for? And all of that helps process and scope out the inspection to whether or not you either need an electrician to come with you, and you can sub that out. There's again, there's so much of that listed on in the CCPIA webpage for this stuff, or whether or not it's something you can handle yourself, because all of that is billing. All that's billable. I mean, you could have an inspection that in high school was $16,000 I charged for that. We did it in one day. I brought 9 inspectors with us, and we cranked it out. But it's one of those you have to decide.
Okay. Do you need to be a level 1 or 2 thermographer?
Absolutely not. Unless you're going to do thermal imaging. If you're not going to do thermal imaging, then no. If you're going to do thermal imaging, you should have as much credentials as you possibly can to get the job done to what your clients need.
Okay, and we've gotten some questions. Thank you all. What is the rope safety item called? Rope pulls through one way only unless released with a button or a switch.
Oh,
What is the rope safety item called? It's a rope that pulls through one way only unless released with a button or switch.
Oh, I think it's called a clinch, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, I don't. That's great for fall arresting when you clip on for a roof, and they use that an awful lot. I don't use that. I use just a simple clip one, and it clips on and clips off, and clips on and clips off as I unclip it.
Okay. Next is, should you report on machines manufactured plates? For example, equipment in a workshop.
Never. Not unless my client asks, because today it might be a machine shop. Tomorrow it's going to be the guy might be a printer. I don't look at anything built into the building that's not a wash sink, a water fountain, a toilet. I put blinders on, and I walk right past everything that's in there. I might know what it is. Oh, look, there's a CNC machine over there, and oh, look, there's a lathe that they're turning out table legs. Well, tomorrow they're going to do something else in that building. So unless my clients hired me, now I've had that done where they're buying the building and the business, and they want to make sure that equipment's going to be there when they get back. Then he might hire me to go, hey, I want you to take a picture of every piece of machinery and then put a serial number down. Well, then that just goes in my proposal, and that's another way for me to make money.
Okay. Do you sub out different parts of the inspection, like the HVAC or the roofing, etc.?
It depends on the project. If my client requires the roof to be cored, I have a roofer that I can bring in. If my client requires a pressure test or a sprinkler test, I can bring a sprinkler contractor in. If they require load analysis, I can bring an engineer in for electric loads. But most of the time, they're not looking for that level of due diligence. They're just looking for what is the building asset going to be. And so that's where I scope. But I have the ability, if we wanted to a la carte things, to provide probably 30 to 50 different types of inspections, depending on what they want to pay for.
Okay, and probably this will be the last question. Do you require a building maintenance person to open up rooms in larger buildings and where alarms are in place?
Absolutely. When I did the high school, the building engineer gave me the 3 master keys. I put them right on a rope, a string lanyard right on my hip, and I unlocked as I went and locked as I went, because he did not want to babysit me. I've had that done. I've had other buildings that they've gone through the hour before I've got there and unlocked everything, Then I've had other buildings where if it's locked, you know what I do with a locked door? I move to the next unlocked door. I don't spend any time worrying about that. I just keep moving. You know, and it's if I get hired to do a 22 unit apartment building, and 2 of them I couldn't get into, I'm not going to discount my fee. I'm just going to tell them units 1 and whatever, I didn't go in. So here is your report on 20 of the 22. I think if I could do 80% of the units when I think that's a victory. I think that you can extrapolate beyond that.
Okay, and someone sent in a question here, and I'll ask it because I think it's simple. How do we report on parking for commercial buildings?
How do we report on parking? It's just another section of my report. You know, we have if you look at ComSop, which is available, right on InterNACHI's website, just commercial standards of practice, ComSop. If you look at it, there's a line item for flat work. There's a line item for topography. There's a line item for parking and roadways. There's a section for curbs and gutters. And so it's just another section of my report.